the Emo Hour, your weekly power hour of all things emo and adjacent, with your hosts, Katie and Nani.
Hello and welcome to the Emo Hour. I'm your host, Nani, with my good friend, Katie. Hi, Katie.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good. How about you?
I'm feeling pretty good. Here we are again.
Here we are again.
You want to just jump into it? You want to tell me what's making you emo this week?
Yeah, I think so. So I the word is solitude, I guess. So I've been spending a lot of time by myself, with myself. And I always try to do this ever so often, just to think it's good for us to spend time with ourselves. But
Sure.
I have been, I don't know, like a lot of like reflective, deep thinking, like that type of stuff. And I think it's really easy to get stuck in kind of the day-to-day monotony of work and life and kids and house and family and all the things like that, which, you know, obviously I don't have all of those things. But I guess the point is I'm just used to kind of, you know, getting back into the schedule of the day, right? And sometimes you forget to take a moment and think and reflect with yourself. And so what's making me emo is just having this time with myself, and giving my head the space and time to, I guess, let my mind wander more than it has in a long time. And it's been awesome.
Well, good. That's good to hear, because I feel like it can also kind of turn into spiraling for a lot of people.
For myself too included, right? Like, you know me, I'm an overthinker. I overthink. I think it's both a blessing and a curse being an overthinker. As with a lot of things in life, if you're detail oriented, if you're, you know, some things can be like a blessing and a curse, because if you're detail oriented, all you see are the things that you fixate on stuff.
Sure.
That's also me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I can report so far that it's been a really lovely thing.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And
Yeah.
it's good to have that time to think, but also just to like decompress and spend some time with yourself. And I think a lot of people are frankly kind of scared to do that. Or like you said, just like so wrapped up in day-to-day stuff that you kind of lose that. And I think it is really important to, you know, it's part of self-care, right? It can be. So I think that's great. I'm very happy to hear that for you.
Yeah. So what about you? What's making you emo?
Well, mine's a bit heavy. I'm feeling emo and thankful for my good health. And the reason that that's on my mind is in large part because my husband was just gone for some time visiting his dad, just had surgery. Everything's looking positive and headed in the right direction for him, but he just went to go kind of be support and, you know, cook food, do dishes, things like that. And there's also I just feel like there's a lot of bad health things going around, and mostly I'm talking about cancer, frankly. His stepmom, her cancer came back. I also know his grandpa just got diagnosed with cancer. And aside from that, so that side of the family is dealing with a lot right now. So, you know, thoughts or prayers or whatever you believe in to them would be helpful if that's what you do. No pressure on the prayers if that's not what you believe in. But if you want to have somebody in mind for, you know, well wishes and healing and good health, then my husband's family would be a great place to start. But also just like people that I've known for some time, whether it was from college or law school or whatever, I've been seeing stuff online of people getting diagnosed with cancer and going through treatment. And, you know, Katie Thurston, who was a former bachelorette, she's in her early 30s. She just got diagnosed with breast cancer and is going through that. And I just feel like it's been a lot, and maybe it's just been a lot in my world, you know, and like the world that I'm aware of. But I just feel like there's a lot of scary stuff going around, which is making me emo that, like your life can change so quickly. Like, for example, Katie Thurston, she's a public figure, right? So she just announced a couple weeks ago that she got diagnosed with cancer. And she also is engaged to a comedian, and they were basically planning on leaving California and moving to New York City, as I understand it, with him. He's on a world tour right now. And she got diagnosed with cancer, and then they had to change everything to figure out a treatment plan. So now she's staying in California longer, and he postponed his world tour dates, which of course he did. And, I'm sure she's so grateful for that. And it just flipped their world upside down. And it's just wild that something like that can happen so suddenly and just change all of your plans immediately. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. I mean, everything you've said there was a lot, and I know you're not done yet, but oh my God. One, Trav's family is absolutely in my thoughts. And then yeah, I think strangely, I think what's making us emo they're slightly related in the sense of your life can change in an instant, and you have to take advantage of the life that you have in this moment and not take it for granted,
Yeah.
Wow.
Totally.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Did you know about the Katie Thurston thing?
No. I mean, a lot of what you just said was surprising to me.
Yeah. Well, sorry, it was kind of threw it at you. But the Katie Thurston thing is, the reason why I'm talking about her is just because she is putting it out there, right?
We watched The Bachelorette. Let's be honest.
We do watch The Bachelorette. And she was a former Bachelorette, and she's an influencer. She has a big following, but she's putting it out there, so I feel like I can talk about it. But it just kind of. It can happen to anyone, for one. Not that, it just makes you think nobody's immune to any of that. But she's young, she's younger than I am. I'm pretty certain. And what she posted was she noticed a lump in her breast, and it didn't go away. So she finally went in and she got diagnosed with breast cancer. And there's other influencers and other people that I've followed that have dealt with the same things. And it's just, it can be scary. But when
was the last time that last time you had your boobs checked?
A month ago. I just went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I just went to my appointment. So that actually, thank you for saying that though, because that's one of the things that I wanted to emphasize again. And I had talked about this a while ago, is just go to the doctor. Even if you're young, you're not invincible. Go get your blood work done. Go get your annual exam with your gynecologist. But self-check your breasts. And if you notice something that seems off, then go get it checked out. Don't just ignore it. I've talked about on this podcast, I know several people who have died way, way, way too young, and most of them would have lived much longer if they would have paid attention to symptoms sooner.
Right.
So,
and the thing that I think I might have referenced at some point too is sometimes things become new normals and they get normalized, I guess. And that's another thing that freaks me out. It's if you notice something that has changed, don't just be oh yeah, that's normal, or that's, go check on yourself,
Yeah.
Check on yourself. And as we're having this conversation, I'm I think it might be time for me to go in and get a boob check. I think it's been long enough. It's a good reminder for me. Because I think we've talked about it in the past personally, not on the podcast, but I think it might be time for me again.
Yeah, and mammograms, as I understand it, are not really recommended until you hit 40. But if you have a history of breast cancer in your family, or if you have any concerns, I think it's just talk to your doctor about it, and you can get a mammogram. Which I've never had that. I've never had a mammogram.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this together. I have had one of those, which is weird because it doesn't necessarily run in my family. But when I was living in Nashville, I did get one, and I would have been prior to 30 at that point. So, because that's where they squeeze your boob with a machine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So technical.
They squeeze your boob with a machine. That's all they do, and then they're done.
quickly, what we can just say is 2 episodes ago, because last week we ended up having emo news of the month, if you will, or of the moment. And we were planning on going from the Meet Your Co-host about me to Meet Your Co-host about Katie back to back. But we forgot, oh my gosh, there's so many happenings going on in the emo sphere that we didn't get a chance to talk about. So we did that. We had a little buffer in between. And if you've been sitting on the edge of your seat, now is your time, because we are about to dive into all things Katie. So I guess without further ado, you should just get into it.
Well, you started at third grade. So, based on a prompt from me.
Oh my God.
So I don't know. I mean, I'll just start talking. But I grew up in a little town called Payette, Idaho, which is on the Oregon border. And it's a very small, rural, like farming community. We weren't farmers, but just very small town, pretty redneck, pretty hillbilly, all of those things. Lots of hunting, lots of everything. So I mean, really, I guess high school is where, like, maybe even middle school, where I started to get into emo music, or kind of emo adjacent music. And it's just funny to me looking back that it's such a small, like, rural farming community, and here I am, like, listening to emo music. But there was a lot of us. I mean, there was a big group of us that were all fans of, like, the same types of bands. And we would drive to Boise to go to shows. Like, I know you were talking about driving to all different kinds of places to go to shows. Boise was the place that we would go. But I wasn't going there until I was in my teens, until I could drive myself. And I guess the other thing is I was an athlete. Like, I grew up playing soccer and softball, and then picked up tennis when I was in high school. But I was a jock. Like, in soccer, we won the state championship my sophomore year of high school. And like, I would say that, like, I was a jock. I was kind of a smart kid. I was like a goody two shoes. But then I also, like, my edge, I guess, was like emo music. And every single day I would wear Dickies pants and band t-shirts if I wasn't wearing, like, sports gear. And
we have that in common, the goody two shoes.
Yeah.
Emo is where we got our angst out.
For sure. But yeah, we talked about how we were both, like, straight edge. I was a good kid. Like, I was on student council. Like, I got good grades, like, all those things. But that was my edge, was like the type of music that I listened to, and the clothes that I would wear. And I put black in my hair a couple different times.
Where was the black in your hair?
In high school, I did just like a chunky streak, kind of like a side bang chunky streak. And then right out of high school, I did kind of like a layer of black underneath a layer of black underneath, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. And neither of my parents were very excited about me doing anything to my hair or getting piercings. I had my lip pierced. And I had an industrial piercing in my ear, which I don't wear anymore. You can still see the hole in my lip if you're looking carefully.
One of my favorite facts about you, because unlike you, right, I had 0 piercings, and you had, like, emo piercings, and I love that.
Yeah, I had, like, the industrial was a pretty big one, and the lip piercing, and I also had a double belly button piercing too. Pretty much all of those I got after I was 18, though, because my parents really didn't want me to do that. So that was all.
This is kind of dumb. What's a double belly button piercing?
Just one on the top and one on the bottom.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if they were, like, side by side.
No, like, the bottom one is kind of the common one, and then I had one on the top too, because I thought that was super cool, and I think it was pretty cool. But I didn't ever get any tattoos. I don't remember if you talked about that. Like, neither of us have any tattoos, but I was into the piercings, and I still have one. I have this, I think it's called a snug piercing, but I still like piercings. Like, I would maybe do more, honestly, on my ears, not on my face. So in high school, I was featured in a music video so the band Emery, a mutual love of ours, did a music video competition where they basically asked anyone and everyone, like, hey, create your own music video to our song, So Cold I Could See My Breath. Submit it. We'll pick a winner, and the winner, like, that will be our actual music video. So me and a group of friends were like, this would be so cool. We love Emery. We were like, let's do it. And somebody knew somebody that like had a camera and knew how to edit and was like, he was a bit older than us. Like we were all like 16, 17 in high school. And this other guy was like 20 maybe in college, you know, going to school for video production or whatever. I don't even know. Like I couldn't even tell you his name nowadays. But they came up with like this storyline, what we were going to do for this video. And I played like the bad girl, I guess, which is also funny because I was very much like a goody two shoes.
You were the baddest girl.
I was so bad. But now we will definitely have to post that video to our Instagram, and everybody else will have to enjoy it. And some of my high school friends that I've talked to like forgot about it or haven't seen it in years and years and years. And I watch it at least once a year. So
I would absolutely watch it once a year. I've watched it with you. It is the most epic thing.
I don't know if it's the most epic thing, but it's pretty good. The storyline is basically like there's this guy, his name is Tyler, and the girl Jess. They're in a relationship or whatever in the story. The video happened during homecoming. So Jess was actually like in the court. Is that what you call it in high school? Like the Queen's Court, like up.
Homecoming court?
Yeah, homecoming court. And then she like won queen during the video. So that's part of the video too, is like her becoming like homecoming queen.
That's right.
And I'm there like lurking in the shadows, like, hey, come over to me. And then we go and like
side.
Yeah, then we go and toilet paper a friend's house whose
Back
parents
when you could do that, because now you can't. We don't shortage of toilet paper and eggs.
True. We went and toilet papered a friend's house whose parents consented to it. But then, yeah, I play the role of like, this is weird to say, but I'm kind of like the seductress. I mean, none of it is inappropriate, but like that's the storyline, right? Is like I'm trying to get this guy to come with me instead of his girlfriend who just won homecoming queen.
I cannot wait for people to see this.
Yeah. I mean, it's still on YouTube, which I'm so grateful for because otherwise I have no idea where I would even look for it. Like I don't have a disc of it or anything. So I just had to bring that up because that shows how emo I've always been, right?
So emo. I love this Emery story though, because it like that and then your senior high school photo are like the two things that I think of when I think of Katie emo. It's like my favorite thing ever.
And that's funny because that Under Oath shirt that I'm wearing in my high school senior photo I think I'm also wearing that in the Emery music video. Like, yeah. I don't know if you could really be able to tell that, but like, I know that, you know? So, I mean, those were two of my favorite bands, Under Oath and Emery. So it checks out. But definitely check out our Instagram, and I'll figure out how to post it on TikTok too. I think I could probably do that because, you know, we got to shed some light on that. And I'm going to tag all my high school friends that are in it, and they are probably going to be like mortified for the most part. But that's fine. Then
I highly celebrate this thing. I don't care if they're mortified. This is so exciting.
Oh, thank you. So like after high school, like I said, I was a jock, right? So I kind of always knew that I was going to go up to University of Idaho for college. My oldest brother went there and I had visited and just kind of had fallen in love with it when I was pretty young. So I figured that's where I would go. But
can I ask you a question? You said you were a jock. What sports did you play?
I played soccer and softball my entire life. Like those were the main two. I mean, when I was like younger, I played a little bit of basketball. I did track at some point, but like soccer and softball were really it until my junior year of high school. I frankly, I didn't like the coach for softball at all. And I just was so over him. And my dad had always played tennis. And so I was like, oh, I think I'm going to try tennis out. So I started playing tennis. Well, actually, junior year, I played both. I did both softball and tennis because they're the same season. But I basically told the tennis coach, like, softball is going to be my priority. But like, I'll come to whatever tennis matches that I can. And he was like, that's fine. I understand. And then I think it was senior year. I was just so over the softball coach. I just did not like him. Still don't really like him. Something about me and like that whole family just like never meshed. I don't know. Cause his wife was also a substitute teacher and we didn't get along. And that's really weird. Cause like I was a teenage kid who was like a pretty good kid. So like, I don't know why there was an issue there. Anyway,
trust your gut.
Yeah. Moving on. So senior year, I didn't play softball, which was that was a pretty big deal for me at the time, considering I had played my entire life. So, and I focused on tennis senior year. So then when I was deciding what college to go to, I knew U of I was like going to happen at some point, but I really just wasn't ready to stop playing sports. So I went to community college for a couple years in Ontario, Oregon. So I was a Treasure Valley Community College chucker. And I played soccer there. And weirdly enough, I played tennis there, even though I had only played for like 1.5 years. But, you know, I was pretty good. So I did that for 2 years. I met some really great friends there, saved a lot of money because it was a community college. And like got a bunch of prerequisites out of the way. So like I definitely don't regret that decision. By the time I left community college, I was ready to be done with sports. Like that was a good level of closure for me, right? Because like soccer, I thought maybe I could go somewhere with it, type of a thing. And then after community college, I was like, nah, I'm good. Like I'm ready to move on. So then I went up to University of Idaho in Moscow. And that's when I drank for the first time. So I was 20 years old and my junior year of college up at University of Idaho. That was the first time I ever drank. So again, I think you said something. Oh, you said about your ears. You didn't get your ears pierced till you were in college, I think.
Yeah, that, but also drinking, same thing.
Yeah. Which especially for like a small rural town, like drinking was very much something that teenage kids did. But my two closest girlfriends and I, like, we were all good kids and we didn't drink at all until we were in college. So I went to University of Idaho and I played intramurals there. Sports was kind of over for me at that point. And I got my bachelor's degree in political science. And then it was like, what the hell do I do with a bachelor's degree in political science? And
so, do you care if I ask you questions as we go along? Because
no, not at all.
Questions keep coming up. So, okay, so you were 2 years at community school and then college, sorry. And then 2 years at U of I, right?
Mm-hmm.
And U of I is in Moscow, not Moscow,
Correct.
Idaho. And maybe this is weird to bring up really quickly at this point, but that is also where that crazy story was, right?
Brian Kohberger allegedly murdered 4 college students by stabbing them over 2 years ago. It was in November,
which is bonkers. The like that you went to school there. Can you remind me where it's on a border town also, right? Like you grew up in a border town and you went to school in a border town.
That's true. Yes. So Moscow, not Moscow, as you point out, Moscow, Idaho. It's on the border of Washington. So it's right next to Pullman. Pullman has Washington State University, or the Cougs. So it's like 2 pretty large colleges, especially for a pretty, smaller, less populated area, like 10 miles apart from each other. And WSU is like a D1 big school. University of Idaho is not that big, but they're 10 miles apart from each other. I mean, that was college. I met some great friends in college too who are still, great friends to this day. But I really just like, I went to school and I partied, frankly. Like that's what I did those 2 years. And then I got my bachelor's degree in political science, and it really was kind of like, well, what do I do now? Like, that's not really a degree that you can do much with unless you want to teach, which I didn't want to do, or you go to law school. And, that's something you had said, you grew up in Missoula and then you got into the music industry, and you made some comment about how that is kind of that's a path that not many people would take growing up in a place like Missoula. Mm-hmm. And that definitely, like, that idea resonates with me a lot, because I think part of it is just the way that I think, which is probably part of like how I was raised and the community that I was raised in. But I very much kind of think in the box, and sometimes it's hard for me to think outside of the box. So like political science was something I was interested in. And then I was like, what do I do next? I guess I'll go to law school because that's what makes sense. So that's what I did.
This is kind of a silly question, but what is political science? Like, I know that's so dumb to maybe not totally have the answer to. I mean, I guess I didn't know the difference between fraternal and identical twins. But is it, because yeah, I don't even want to try to explain it because I think I'm gonna get it wrong.
I mean, it's political philosophies, it's political theories, it's a lot of just political philosophies and theories, I think, is like the easiest way to describe it. It was a lot of different philosophy classes, which I really enjoyed, and just public policy issues. It's all very like theoretical stuff, right? But that's your government teacher, or a lot of people, maybe they'll teach history or things like that. Like that's what political science really does. Or if you want to be a politician, obviously, but I didn't want to do that either. But that's really kind of it. Political science really feeds you into teaching or politics or law school. And since I always have kind of thought inside the box, and I grew up in this small town where it was like you do the quote unquote normal things, you become a teacher, you become a nurse, you become a dentist, you become a lawyer, like things like that. And that's what I did. I became a lawyer and here I am. But
you're not skipping over it that quickly. Also,
no, I wasn't planning to.
But I was like, you're not getting out of it this easy, Katie. But is one of these parties that you were during your partying years? Is this when you met Trav? Your husband, I should say.
Yeah, I guess I should talk about him during college, huh? So we met junior year it was Mom's Weekend. So University of Idaho used to have a Dad's Weekend in the fall, like during football season, and a Mom's Weekend in the spring. Now I think they just call it Parents' Weekend, and they have it once a year, and like whoever comes. But we met at Mom's Weekend. We had a mutual friend, one of my high school, or one of the guys I grew up with, basically. His name was Nick. Like, I'd known him since we were in kindergarten together, I think. He was Travis's neighbor. And Nick invited me over with my mom to brunch at their place. So we went over there, and Travis was there with his mom. And Travis likes to say that I hated him the first time I saw him. I would not say that. I have never said that. I would say that I was unimpressed with him. That's largely because I kind of just started drinking. My mother is Mormon. I was not like open with her about me starting to drink and, like kind of just explore being an adult on my own more.
Can I ask, I hate that I'm asking you so many questions, but you just said that your mom was Mormon. You grew up Mormon, right?
I did grow up Mormon, yes. But I no longer claim the Mormon religion. But I did grow up Mormon. My mom is still Mormon. My dad never was and still is not.
And And at what point in your life did you, what's the term, like leave the church or take your papers away from the church or whatever?
I mean, officially, I did it shortly after college because I remember Travis and I were dating. So I was probably like 23,
Okay.
I would guess, ish, 22, 23. I really wasn't very committed to it at all, like during my teenage years. Like I was a goody two-shoes, but I wasn't like the Mormon girl,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Right.
I would go to church kind of when I felt somewhat forced to go or heavily encouraged to go, but it wasn't like a persona that I personified, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Thank you for that. Back to being unimpressed by Trav.
Well, the reason for that was that I was kind of still putting on this like facade to my mom about I wasn't telling her that I was drinking and going to parties, like she just didn't know that. I wasn't lying to her about it, but I just wasn't telling her that. And then if you know my husband and his mom, you know that they are pretty boisterous and they were having a great weekend together and they were drinking and they were partying and they were doing nothing wrong at all. It was just like I wasn't in control of like the impression that my mom was getting of my life, if that makes sense,
Totally. Yeah.
So he and I met, and like I said, he likes to say that I hated him. I didn't hate him, but I will say I was unimpressed. And then it wasn't until over a year later that we officially started dating. So from there, we kind of ran into each other just around town a couple times, and it would usually be like out at the bars after, when we were drinking. It was just like, hey, what's up? And that was kind of it. And then like the following spring, so almost a year later, same mutual friend, Nick and I went to Grad Fest together because it was all three of us were graduating that year. And we went to Grad Fest to like sign whatever papers and like buy our like cap and gown and whatever else. I don't know, whatever else we had to do. So we went to that. Nick and I went to that, met up with Travis, and then like went out to the bar after. And he and I just like clicked that night, and like we just got along really well, and we were making inside jokes, and it just like we just clicked, and ever since then we've been together. But I mean, there's more to it than that. But we started like texting, we started talking, and then I guess I will say Travis took me on a date like a week or two later. We went to our first date was at a Spokane Chiefs hockey game.
That tracks.
Yeah, which is like an hour and a half-ish, an hour to an hour and a half away from Moscow. So like we did kind of an early dinner in Moscow. And actually I remember we went to this Mexican restaurant, also tracks, because that's my favorite kind of food. And I remember so many girls were saying hi to Travis when we were at that Mexican restaurant that I was like, what is going on?
Oh my God.
It really kind of threw me off a little bit. And then we started driving to Spokane to go to this Chiefs game. And I was just asking him. Also, this is a big commitment for a first date. Like dinner, hour and a half drive, hockey game, hour and a half drive back home. Like that's a big date.
That's a huge day. Also, it can be really awkward time in the car. An hour and a half?
Yeah. I mean, maybe like an hour and 15 minutes. But yeah, like it's a trek.
Yeah.
But here's the even bigger commitment. So we were driving over to Spokane. I don't even know if I've told you this before. And I was like, so do you already have tickets? Or like, do we have to buy tickets when we get there? What's the deal? And he's like, oh, no, my dad has them. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, yeah, we're going to meet up with my dad. My dad has them. And I was like, does he live in Spokane? I mean, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was like trying to figure out what he meant. What he meant was that we were going to a game with his parents and his sister.
Oh my God.
Have I ever told you that?
No. And this makes so much sense. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Our very first date, I met his parents and his sister.
Cool,
and
cool.
Did not know that was going to happen until we were driving there.
Can't get out now.
So I was like, okay, I guess we're doing this. And then the Chiefs lost, and his little sister, who was like 14 at the time or something, like jokingly blamed me and basically told me I couldn't come back. So like that's a pretty hard introduction.
Hey, here's this new girl. She's the bad luck charm.
Yeah, I'm still kind of known as the bad luck charm, but it's fine. So despite that, that's a pretty intense first date situation, I would say.
Oh my God.
And but we still, I mean, we just kept hanging out, and we were both graduating that year. So this date happened in like March, I think, end of March, and we graduated like 6 weeks later or something. And it's funny because I remember I went up to Coeur d'Alene, that's where he's from, for his graduation party, and met like a bunch of extended family and, you know, family friends and whatever. And we agreed that he would introduce me as his girlfriend, just to like try not to complicate it, even though we weren't really girlfriend boyfriend yet. So that happened.
But it was a movie.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But then that weekend we agreed that we would be boyfriend girlfriend, even though we both had just graduated. I was headed back to Payette because I didn't really know what I was going to do next. I knew the law school was in mind, but I wasn't like registered to go that fall. And Travis had just graduated with his bachelor's in architecture and was going back to get his master's in architecture. So then for the following year, I lived in Payette and he was still in Moscow going to school. And then I went to law school. I took basically kind of like a gap year, you know, and then I went to law school after that. So then we were in Moscow together for his last year of his master's and my first year of law school. And then he moved to Ketchum after a Skype interview with an architecture firm, even though he had like moved here sight unseen, had never ever been here before, and just knew that he like the mountain town sounded cool, something he was interested in. And he did the Skype interview and he's like, I'm going to do it. So he moved to Ketchum and I was still in Moscow. And then I graduated. Well, I did my third year of law school in Boise. And now they have you can do all 3 years in Boise. But at the time that I was there, it only worked out that I could do my third year in Boise.
And is that what's required for a law degree, is an extra 3 years?
Yeah, 3 years is, law school is pretty much always 3 years.
Okay.
Unless you're doing
I know that. So you went to school for 7 years.
I sure did.
Wow.
So I have a JD. It's a Juris Doctor. It's not a Juris Doctorate. People make that mistake a lot, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, I guess.
So are you a doctor?
I am a doctor of the law, technically.
Dr. Franklin?
I mean, nobody says that, but yes. I passed the bar first time. I'll say that too.
That is so epic. Dr. Franklin. Wait, did you just say you passed the bar the first time?
I did.
That is Katie.
Well, you knew that.
I don't remember. That is so awesome. That is
I mean, that's you should. I don't know. It's a hard thing to do, but so here's what happens if you go to law school. You graduate and then you have 2 months to study for the bar exam. And it's after 3 years of law school where you're like burned out. You've had, like we call it 3L-itis, because in law school, your first year is 1L, your second year is 2L, your third year is 3L. So like senioritis, but we would call it 3L-itis. And it's like when you're burned out, then it's like, okay, now guess what your full-time job is this summer? It's studying for the bar exam. So I actually came to Ketchum and like lived with Travis pretty much for like 6 weeks while I was studying for the bar, and in his like studio apartment, and then went and took the bar in Boise, and then you have to wait like almost 2 months to get your results back. So that's a super fun time in your life, but got the results.
Probably when you start drinking heavily.
I don't even know what I was doing. I think I maybe have blacked that part of my life out. Maybe because I was drinking heavily.
Maybe
I don't know.
Blacked out. That's
Maybe
what I would have done.
I don't think I was expecting to talk about law school this much. I don't know how interesting this is.
Sorry, to me, it's very interesting because I never knew that. Like, you went to school for 7 years. That's incredible.
It's
That,
something.
that's discipline.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of work. Law school is a lot of work. Law school is not for the faint of heart whatsoever. And it's one of those things where they kind of try to scare you away in a way. Like, we had an orientation before law school started, and I remembered one of the seminars or whatever that we had was like, there was 3 attorneys up at the front. Everybody sat down, and then it got serious. And this woman was just like, my name is blah, 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 and I'm an alcoholic. And we were just like, oh my God. And then they started talking about how lawyers are so much more likely to like abuse substances and self-harm and have depression and have anxiety and all these things. And I'm like,
That's how they start you off?
This is like day 1 or 2 of orientation. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I mean, it is true. Like, if you look at the stats, there's various careers that are more susceptible to those types of things. And lawyers are pretty much always up in there in the top 5 or top 10 for those types of things.
We've got that in common too, because music industry professionals definitely are in that same bucket.
I could see that for sure. And it's hard. Like, law school, you probably don't know this. So they do, most classes are it's on the Socratic system. So pretty much like you have to do all your study. You have, chapters or whatever preparation you're supposed to do for class. And then you show up. Oftentimes, especially your first year, you have a seating chart. So you have like an assigned place that you're supposed to sit every single class. And the professor basically just, as they're lecturing, will just call you out. So they'll be like talking about some legal concept. And then they'll say, Miss Franklin, tell me about the Smith versus Smith case. And then you just have to do that. And like they put you on the spot, and that can be really terrifying, honestly. And some professors play it up and they like enjoy terrifying students. But there's a couple movies. There's an older movie called The Paper Chase that like really shows you what the real law school experience can be. If you're interested in watching a movie about law school, it's called The Paper Chase. And the other thing that's unique about law school is most of your classes, you're not graded on until the final exam. So your final exam is usually like 2 or 3 hours, and that's your whole grade for the entire semester.
Talk about pressure. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a pressure cooker. They put you through it. But I survived. I made it through 3 years and graduated and then passed the bar. And my first job was with a judge. So I was a law clerk, which basically means that I'm like prepping the judge for like different motion hearings and writing judicial decisions on certain motion hearings and attending trial and things like that. I did that for almost 2 years. And then I moved.
What kind of law is that? Because there's different types of law, right?
Yeah, so I was a law clerk for a state district court judge. So she, and it was a female, she handled civil litigation cases that the jurisdictional amount is, so damages are in excess of $10,000, and felony cases. So judges usually handle both civil and criminal stuff. There's all different kinds of judges, especially in different states. But I worked for a state district court judge. Also in law school, I had an externship for a federal magistrate judge, which is a different situation. But I was with her for a year, another female judge. So I should say that I feel very fortunate that part of my law school experience and my immediate job after law school were working for 2 female judges who were just like super whip smart and respected. And, it's, the legal world is changing, and there's certainly a lot more females now than there used to be, and a lot more female judges now than there used to be. But that was really cool to have that mentorship to right out the gate.
Yeah, I was going to say, at that time, is that something that was that
I mean, it's more and more common. I don't think it was like super uncommon to have an externship with a federal magistrate judge. That's a win, I would say. Like, that's not something that everybody got to experience. I was also on law review, which means nothing to anybody who's not a lawyer, but that's also kind of a star on your resume, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. So all that's to say is, like, I was working hard. Like, I did law review. I got this judicial externship with a magistrate judge. I actually was with that magistrate judge, Judge Candy Dale, at the time that her decision came out, which basically in Idaho, that gay marriage, like the prohibition on gay marriage, was unconstitutional. I was working with her when that decision came out. And so that was 10 years ago, which is wild. So she's a pretty great person to be around.
Yeah.
And well known in the state for, like, that was a decision that changed a lot of things in Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked for Judge Wiebe, who has since retired. Now she lives in McCall, as I understand it. I did that for almost 2 years. And then I moved to Sun Valley, Ketchum. I got a job. So now I've been working at this law firm for almost 8 years, which is also wild to think about. And we do a lot of civil litigation, a lot of real estate stuff, a lot of probate work. We work with a lot of HOAs. It's a small town. It's a small firm. So it's very much a general practice. Starting to get more and more like family law stuff too, which is interesting.
And you had to explain this to me because, again, there are certain things that are just so straightforward that it's sometimes amazing that I don't understand these things, but I can't be the only one. And that is that generally lawyers, they specialize in civil or criminal, right? And so you're in the civil end of things.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two kind of broadest categories that you could identify. But some people do both. I mean, there's other attorneys in town who, like, it's pretty common to handle criminal stuff and also handle family law stuff. And that criminal is criminal, obviously, and then family law stuff is civil. People do, like, bankruptcy. Some people, like, specialize in just do bankruptcy, or, like, that's their main thing. Some people specialize in, like, insurance defense cases. Like, there's so many different things you could specialize in.
Right.
And it really depends on the firm, the area that you live in and the firm that you're in, and just kind of your experience. Some people just specialize in, like, estate and tax planning. But I would say, generally speaking, especially when you're in a smaller town, your practice is it's pretty varied. You're doing different things all the time. A lot of our civil litigation stuff, I can pretty much boil it down to breach of contract type cases. I feel like that's what almost everything, like, there's so many other extraneous issues, but I feel like so much of it boils down to breach of contract stuff.
Right. Yeah. And specialization makes so much sense. I mean, I think like my experience, it would be entertainment law, like, talk about specialized, super, super specialized. Yeah. But, God, it's so cool. Okay, sorry, keep going. I am just drinking this up right now.
Really? It's just, again, a comment that I made to you when we were doing your episode is, like, grass is greener, right? Because, like, I was listening to your stuff and I was like, you've done so many cool and interesting things. And mine has been more of, like, here's my path and this is the path I'm going down. But I don't know if I have much else to say about being a lawyer other than I've said this before, this year is 10 years since I graduated and passed the bar, which is wild to me. I finally am feeling like I have, like, a stride a bit, but at the same time, somebody could call me tomorrow and ask me to do something that I've never done before, and that happens often. And that's one thing that's cool about being a lawyer, I think, is, especially when your practice is varied, is you're doing different things so often, but it also requires a lot of brain power, frankly, and, like, a lot of thinking, and it is a stressful job. I mean, You have to manage your client's expectations while also trying to put forth the best argument. You have to separate like emotion from fact and legal issues as much as you possibly can. There's so many issues to be aware of. I mean, there's so many, there's research and writing is such a big part of the job. And that's something that I've always enjoyed, is writing. And you've read some of my poems that I've written or that we've written together.
Yeah, but you take the lead for sure. You take the lead, and then I make them just a little worse, and then we work together. We make it better again.
Oh, perfect. But yeah, I mean, I think that's all I really have to say about being a lawyer, at least. And then, I mean, I'll just say I moved to, like, in terms of my personal life, after I moved to Ketchum, Travis and I got engaged shortly after I moved here. And then we got married like a year later. And then we were just like living it up as a married couple for a while. And then, I've talked about on this podcast, my brother passed away in 2021. And I'll be completely honest and vulnerable, I guess, in that him passing made me really think about life in a different way and think about what experiences I want to have in life and what experiences are available to us in this life. And one of those things was having a child. And again, to be completely honest, like that was always something that my husband and I were kind of like, oh, we don't know, but maybe yes, maybe not. We don't know. And my brother passing kind of just put a different perspective in my head about, this is our one life. And this is something that I want to experience in this life. So then we had our daughter, Reagan, she turned 2 last November and changed our worlds. And now I'm a married lady with a baby. Well, she's a toddler. And I'm raising her to be a little emo, hopefully. And I don't know what else to say.
Okay, I have so many. Like, one, you're raising like the most beautiful, smart, sarcastic, sassy little girl, and she is the best. And hearing you say that, I have a couple of things I actually want to ask you. My path was one of which where I was kind of saying jack of all trades and you're a specialist. And how does that feel? Like, how does that feel for you being a specialist? Like you are, I think there's like, I'm trying to ask like 17 questions in one, and that's not a great idea, I guess. But the other thing too is, you were referencing that no day is the same, and you might get asked about something at work that you may not know, but you put in the research and the time and the writing and all the stuff that goes into it. To me, it seems that like you may not have a lawyer that like knows every single thing, but as long as that lawyer is willing to put in the work to put the best foot forward for their client, like that to me seems like the magic sauce of like trying to find the right person. Maybe I'm reading into this incorrectly, but I just would love to hear your point of view.
No, I mean, I think that's right. And the more, it's called practicing law, right? So you're always practicing. And the more you practice, the better you get and the more knowledge that you gain. But it's just such a big world. I mean, like, let's just try to think about, so today's Tuesday, right? I've had 2 work days this week, and I have filed a document related to a motion for summary judgment having to do with like a settlement agreement that one of my clients entered into with another party years ago, and whether they've complied with that. And then I've also gotten an email about like updating somebody's will, and I've gotten an email. Oh, I talked to somebody else about like proceeding with an adoption because they want to adopt their stepchild. I talked to somebody else about who wants to get a divorce. Again, family law is not really what I do generally, but it's been kind of increasing as of late. Mm-hmm. I got an email about drafting a contract between a management company and a bookkeeper. And I mean, these are just the things off the top of my head.
Like all over the place.
It can be so varied. And I have depositions next week for a divorce case that I'm working on. Again, this is like an unusual amount of family law things that I'm bringing up, but I'm starting to do that more. But it can just be so many different things. Oh, I drafted a deed today because somebody's a beneficiary. They're getting a piece of property because somebody died. They're a beneficiary of the trust. And I mean, there's just like, it's just so many different things. And the more you do it, the quicker you can like whip these things out, but you're still going to have questions that you've never really addressed, and you have to figure out how to do that. And that's what a general practicing attorney does. And I would say, I mean, that's basically what I am. And that's what a lot of attorneys are, is just like general practicing attorneys. Like, you've got a legal question, you have an attorney, you call them and ask them like what they think about it.
So you're a specialist and a generalist would be kind of...
Yeah, I wouldn't call myself a specialist, honestly.
Well,
like,
I guess your specialty is law, right? Like, you're a lawyer, but you're also like, you do general law.
Yeah. Like if I was like a bankruptcy attorney, I would call myself a specialist. Or if I was a tax attorney, I would call myself a specialist. But, or if all I did was criminal law, I would call myself a specialist. But most attorneys, at least in this area, don't really specialize, because it's just the needs are so different, and it's a small town and everybody has different capacities. But if you're in a huge law firm in a big city, you might have like, oh, this attorney does the estate planning versus this attorney does the civil litigation versus this attorney does the probate work, you know.
Interesting. Okay. Sorry to ask you all these questions.
No, that's fine.
And then, talking about, having Reagan and kind of the life events that led up to that, I had no idea that was such a big piece that kind of came into play. Because I knew that you guys were approaching it in like yeah, maybe, like, we'll see, but I didn't realize that was kind of the turning point, I guess.
Oh, really? I hadn't told you that before?
No, not in such like, it's not like in such a straightforward way.
Yeah. I mean, it like for my mental, yeah, like for me thinking about it mentally, that was a pretty big part of it. I also had like kind of like tangible goals that I wanted to reach prior to that happening. So those things also happened. Or as you know, I got pregnant, and then I was like, we got to remodel our condo right now because we're not going to do it with a baby around. So that's an interesting, 6 months or so of our lives is while I'm pregnant, remodeling our condo.
Well, the condo that you own, like, you guys are homeowners.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was one of those tangible things that I wanted to accomplish, was like, hopefully buying a place, or at least being in a position to buy a place before, really thinking about having a child. And then the place we bought was pretty old and dated and needed to do a lot of work. It was like totally functional, but it needed a lot of work. So I got pregnant, and remodeling was in the plan, but I, was fortunate to get pregnant quickly and easily, which I understand is a fortunate thing, but also makes things very real, very fast. And then it truly was like, okay, let's get this done now. So we were living here as I was pregnant. Luckily, pregnancy was relatively easy for me, because it's not for a lot of women. And I mean, we didn't have a full kitchen for several months, like we had like a microwave / convection oven and air fryer that we didn't even really use the air fryer. We just ate out a lot, or like got to go food a lot. We didn't have like a shower in our home for 4 months, I think it was. So we would shower at our gym, which is a very nice gym, so you can't complain too much, but it's also just not a convenient life to have to go to the gym to take a shower. And I absolutely went to the bathroom in the middle of the night in our little alleyway a couple times when we didn't have a toilet installed, or would go use the neighbors' toilets during the day.
I was gonna say something because I knew that, but I was like, I'm not gonna out her like that. But oh my god, I love that you just said that.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
so
pregnant
human.
women. Yeah, pregnant women got to pee, man. And we're getting new toilets in, and I mean, Travis, he's like a camel, so he was like, we're gonna be fine. And I was like, I'm pregnant. Do you not? And I also just pee more than you do. So I absolutely, a couple times in the middle of the night, would just like go outside. And we live on a very busy street. I mean, there is a fence, but it's a very busy street. Like, it's not a private area, really. Um, so I did that. But, you got to do what you got to do. And luckily, we have a great community of neighbors, like I said, who we definitely would from time, as little as possible, we would use their shower or toilet. The toilet thing was not like that was only like a day or two,
It was
that
short-lived,
was,
but I
yeah,
remember it. It felt
the
like
toilet thing
eternity.
was very short lived. But we also like, for weeks, if not months, I had like a big camping jug of water out front that I would use to like brush my teeth at night and rinse my face off, like just out on our front steps. And again, we live in a condo where it's like it's a very small community, so we were pretty redneck for a while.
But all that to say, you you're married to an architect, you're a lawyer, you have a beautiful 2-year-old girl, or two in some months. I've been corrected many times of how to pronounce it.
Well,
What's the
it's
proper?
because it's you said 2.5, and I was like, she's not 2.5 yet.
You
She's
know,
getting closer. We're almost to the point where we can say two and a
two and a
half.
half. And so you've got a 2 and some month old, who is just so beautiful and smart, and I just love her dearly. You guys own your place, albeit going through quite the experience to get there. Like, what a life you've built.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And
You've built a beautiful life. And then I came into it.
here we are with the Emo Hour. I know, I was going to say, and then last year we started our Emo Hour radio show, which then we turned it into this. So that's been a big part of it too. I mean, I'm very grateful for Ketchum. Ketchum is not somewhere I would ever have imagined myself living. I grew up 3.5 hours away from here and did not visit here until I was in law school. Till I was 24, maybe. I would say 24, 25 was the first time I ever visited. Travis and I were dating at the time. He was not like thinking about moving here or anything at that time. It was the first time I had ever visited here when I was like 25 years old, even though I grew up 3.5 hours away. Sun Valley always just seemed to me, again, I grew up in like this very small, I want to say small-minded, but I also feel like that can come across the wrong way. But I think it's true. I think a lot of people that grow up in such a small community, it's just people stay there. People like get in their little tiny bubble and they don't experience much else in life. And I just think that that's kind of implemented in the town that I grew up in.
It's also
And
comfortable.
Sun Valley to me was like unattainable. And frankly, like my husband's an architect, and like even meeting him, I was like, ooh, that's exotic, like an architect. And that's how I feel about you being in the music industry. Like those, like architecture and working in the music industry are things that never would have like crossed my mind as something that I could have done, like growing up in that small town. And I'm not trying to blame the town at all. I just think that it's a particular mindset that you kind of grow up in. And, one thing, I guess, to take it back to my daughter is I think her growing up here in Sun Valley, where people here have done everything, right? Like literally, like people here have done everything. Mm-hmm. And I hope and I think that she's not going to grow up with that mindset at all. And I think it's going to be really interesting to watch that happen where she, like, nothing's going to feel unattainable for her. I hope, and like working in the music, I know in my mind that working in the music industry or becoming an architect, those were in no way unattainable. It was just like not in the box that I knew life to be. Does that make sense?
Totally.
I feel like this episode of mine is like a lot more, I don't know, deep thinking and analytical and weird than yours was.
No, and also, it's weird. I think one thing that I didn't think about before we did this is the fact that I went first, maybe set the path for the way we might do the second one, right? Being you. And then I also feel like I poked so many questions in there, which hopefully was okay. I still have like 75 questions on my list, which I'm not going to bother you about because we're already at 1:15.
Hour,
or
yeah.
an hour and 15. But I don't know. I think it's back to the grass is greener or whatever it may be. It's so cool to see somebody who is maybe even though you didn't necessarily know of the other options that might be out there, you chose something that is so like wonderfully you, and to go down a path in which like you will have this, you have to have a license, right? Like you're a licensed lawyer. Like you have a job that no matter what, there's always a need for a lawyer. There's not always a need for a marketing person. There's not always a need for, different things, right? You're a licensed individual who went to 7 years of school. Like it's just a different path, right? It's a totally different path. And I think even though you grew up in a smaller town and maybe it changed the way you thought, but it's pretty cool to see how you've landed at this point in your life because it makes so much sense to me. Like Katie the lawyer.
Katie the lawyer. That's me.
Sorry, Katie the doctor.
No, I don't want that.
Dr. Katie Esquire.
Well, I am an esquire. I am an attorney. I am a barrister. We don't really use that word, but all of those things mean the same thing in the United States. But yeah, I mean, I passed the bar exam and I am licensed to practice law in the state of Idaho and in the federal courts. I'm not licensed to practice anywhere else.
You could though, right? Like if you went to another state, you just have to like do a different license.
Yeah, I mean, every state has their own requirements. Considering I've been practicing now, or I've been a licensed attorney now for almost 10 years, most states I could probably get reciprocity, which I probably wouldn't have to take the bar exam again. But every state has their own rules and requirements. I think it's just becoming easier and easier just in the world that we live in where people are moving around so much. I think it's becoming easier and easier to become licensed in new states. But I will say that, I don't ever want to take the bar exam again. So if that's a requirement, I don't want to do that.
I don't blame you. My only exposure to that is through one of my best friends in college. She was my college roommate. Her sister's a lawyer, and she was going through law school and took the bar. And I just remember them constantly checking the website to see, like, have the results been posted? And just the stress level that the sister had, I felt, I mean, they're a very close family, and obviously I'm close with them as well. But that stress level of kind of that hurry up and wait, and after so many years of school, and it just so many things hanging in the balance for just one result of a test, craziness.
Yeah, and for me, it was you check the website, they were releasing results on whatever day at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or whatever it was. So I was in Travis's studio apartment, he was at work, and I was just like refresh. And then I think it was just like a list of names that passed. So then you have to like search through and see if your name is there. And like it's not fun.
There's got to be a better system now. Hopefully they at least do it alphabetical.
I think it was. But the other thing is that the bar exam is only offered, so it's only offered twice per year. It's offered in July and it's offered in February. So people are actually, as of recording, like it might be happening or just happened. It's literally only offered twice a year. So that's the thing. If you fail, So I took it in July, 2 months after I graduated. If you fail, you have to wait until February to take it again.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
Oh,
then, at least in
devastating.
Idaho, if you fail, I don't know if it's still this way, but it was. I bet it still is. If you fail like 3 times or maybe 5 times, you have to ask permission to take it again. Like they make you request permission to take it again if you've failed an X number of times.
And maybe not the worst idea, right? Like if you failed it numerous times, maybe you should have to ask permission.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. They don't like, and it costs money too. It was like, I don't know, $600 or $800 each time you take it.
Wow.
I don't know, it might be less now. And I paid for a bar review study course. So that's like the course that I took for, 2 months while I was studying. And like, you could do that over and over again. I mean, it's a pretty weird thing looking back on it. And if I took the bar now, I think it would, like, maybe I could pass if I just took it without studying, but I don't really want to do that.
No, yeah, that would be a lot. Well, I always joke. I wonder how many 6-minute increments we've been through on this podcast already, because that's how you build.
I can tell you it's
6-minute
1.3.
increments. What?
I can tell you it's 1.3.
Oh, stop! Get out.
I just looked at the clock. It's 1.3.
Yeah, you've done that before. Well, what else? Did you want to share anything else, Katie? That was so awesome.
Oh my gosh, no, I feel like I talked forever. But I do think you and I have had very different paths in life, and I hope that's interesting to other people. And thanks for listening. Thanks for asking me so many questions. I feel like I should have asked you more, but I think I just kind of interjected when I wanted to when you were talking.
Well, no, as you should. That's what this whole thing is all about. And I forgot. I was going to ask you something, but I forgot what it was. But that's okay. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. It was really great. Do we want to get into our emo lyric of the day?
We should. Do you want to go first? I feel like I should go second.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so my emo lyric of the day is, I just can't get over how great that was hearing all about you. Thank you. Like,
Aw.
I really loved that. That was awesome. I also just have a love of learning about other people's lives and a love of learning about like what makes people tick and like what they went through to get to where they are now, and hearing all these little extra tidbits about your experience of going through law school and whatnot. Just super cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked about law school that much in a long time. Like, those were a lot of things that I was digging a little deeper on. Because part of it is you're just like, thank God I'm through that, right? Like, I don't want to, like, because it's just, it's a pressure cooker.
Yep.
But yeah, law school is a very interesting thing in and of itself. So hopefully at least that part was interesting.
It was awesome. Okay, so emo lyric of the day. So I chose this because I am going to be seeing. Oh no! That's right. I changed it. I was going to do a different one. I'm going to save that one for next time. I chose a lyric by Smash Mouth. And the reason I did Smash Mouth is because last week's episode, we were referencing a band, Nothing Nowhere. They have this series called Will It Emo, and they did All Star by Smash Mouth and did an emo version of Smash Mouth. And asked the question of like, does it emo or will it emo? Anyways, I outed myself last week in the fact that I love Smash Mouth. Their self-titled album is still like, it slaps. I gotta say, there are pieces of it that are so good, and specifically, there's a few different songs on there, but there's a song "Sister Psychic" that I really loved, and so I went back and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna see if I can find an emo lyric in here, and so this is from Smash Mouth and their song "Sister Psychic."
I never thought we'd have a Smash Mouth emo lyric of the day.
You ready?
I'm ready.
My deepest dark secrets. So you can take my diary and rip it all to pieces. Just $6.95.
$6.95.
Maybe I should have left that part out.
Like, is that like a dollar amount?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like $6.95. I probably should have just said my deepest, darkest secrets. So you can take my diary and rip it all to pieces.
I mean, that's angsty.
Is that not emo?
That's very angsty for sure. I'll give that an emo. That's emo. What's the $6.95? Like the diary is $6.95?
Yeah, I think they're saying like for $6.95 you can rip me to pieces. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, I think on our post we'll leave that out though. It's $6.95.
Sounds good.
I don't think I know that song.
Oh, I can't wait for you to hear it. I also can't wait for this song to get added to our playlist because it's really going to take it left field.
Does it? Yeah. Does the song sound emo? I'm guessing not really.
Mr. Psychic, won't you tell me, does it ever get better? Why do I know this song? Like, I know this record front to back.
Okay. Well, weird choice, but you're doing you, and I love that.
You do.
Well, I picked a lyric from Emery's So Cold I Could See My Breath because of our music video from high school. So the lyric is, how quickly lust can pretend it's love, designing words to help us believe it's so much more than just tonight, so we have got to get this right.
I got to hear that one more time.
Okay. How quickly lust can pretend it's love, designing words to help us believe it's so much more than just tonight, so we have got to get this right.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yes, it's long. It's a long lyric. I will say that much.
It is a little long.
And I really had to think about it because I'm like, what is he trying to say?
But I mean, like I said, in the music video that we did, I was kind of like the lust in that video, I would say. And it's to me, I read that lyric to just be like, lust can be confused with love. And like, we can try to convince ourselves that it's love when it's just lust. But like, let's not make a mistake because we can't just focus on right now. We have to focus on everything in our lives. Like basically, I think the simplest way to put it is like, am I going to cheat on my partner with this like interest that I have?
Right.
And I can like convince my brain that it's okay or whatever, but like, let's think about the reality and like what kind of a mistake that would be.
Yeah. Like, are they
That's the way I took it.
Are they going to choose the Katie in the music video?
Yeah. And he did not. He chose the homecoming queen.
You might disagree with this, but I think I'm choosing myself.
Oh
for
my
emo
gosh.
lyric of the day.
All right. I think that's a weird choice, but that's fine.
My deepest dark secrets, so you can take my diary and rip it all to pieces.
All right. I think mine's pretty good, but
I think
you're the judge.
I think yours is great, but just the brevity and just the deepness of Smash Mouth. You can't get angry at that.
The deepness of Smash Mouth.
I cannot wait for you to hear this song. I'm going to send you a couple of their songs.
Okay.
Take you down the Smash Mouth roller coaster.
Great. Thank you for that.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for sharing your story and letting us inside your journey of life and to where you are now. I thought it was super special.
Thank you. This was such a long episode. Thanks for all your great questions. I appreciate it. And if you're still listening, thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Emo Hour. And stay tuned for next week. We'll have something exciting, and we'll follow up with Nani's travels at that point. I don't know where she will be.
Truth. I don't know.
It'll be
I'm going to
great
be either.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see you next week.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.